Hello, Ryan.
Hey, Kieran.
Oh man, this one brings me back. Very nostalgic episode for me.
Yeah, this was one of our first big guides.
Yes, one of the spotlights on a particular destination, which have proven to be some of our most popular episodes. And Iceland, this one covers lots of the major sites that you want to visit in Iceland. You got the Blue Lagoon, you got Gullfoss, you got a glacier walk. I mean, this really brought me back, and it made me want to get back to Iceland because I'd love to see these same sites again, but also to go to the north of the island, which is the part that I didn't get to last time.
Yeah, and we've done another episode on Iceland about weird museums, and we'll post that one in the show notes if folks get a little bit of an Iceland, get a little excited about Iceland. They want to hear more.
Yeah, Iceland. It's an eccentric country, and the museum bit, the Iceland bit, which we should drop that in the show notes of this episode. That one was an author who talked to me about a book she wrote where she did a deep dive on all of these like hobbyists who developed their own small personal museums in really quirky niche topics. And I remember I found it really inspirational that people in Iceland were channeling their entrepreneurship into something like museums for something they just happened to be really passionate about individually, not necessarily into, like a business endeavor. They weren't in it for the money.
My retirement plan is a Ryan J. Davis Museum of Miniatures. So,
do you actually own any miniatures? Famously, you love miniatures
I
miniature museums.
I own a few. I own some miniatures.
And is it like doll furniture?
It's like fancy Danish doll furniture, and little houses and stuff like that. I'm like a kind of a kitschy grandma.
Well, yeah, you're definitely the kitschy grandma of the podcast. Well, and actually, you're making me think of. I also got one of my absolute most favorite, most treasured souvenirs out of this trip to Iceland. When Catherine and I were there, we didn't want to go in the summer season because that's like the most packed in Iceland. And we wanted to do a road trip, so we didn't want to be like drowning in traffic with just a little over a week to be there. And so we went near the holidays, and I learned about this tradition within Iceland that they not only have Santa Claus, but they have a group called the Yule Lads, which are these kind of like naughty elf sort of creatures who have very strange characteristics. And I, as a person who decorates a fancy Christmas tree, well, it's not a fancy Christmas tree, but an elaborate Christmas tree each year, I really wanted these ornaments, and I only bought a few, and when I got home, I regretted not buying the full Yule Lad set. And my brother Brendan actually got in touch with the Iceland artisan who created these Yule Lad ornaments and got me the whole set that year.
Oh my gosh, you got to send him to Peru.
Oh, that's that wound has not healed over yet, Ryan. For those who don't know, Ryan famously failed at finding me a capybara statue that I was looking for when he visited Peru.
Next time, reason to go back.
Yeah, reason to go back. You do need a return trip to Peru just to get me my capybara.
Well, folks, we'll be back next week with a new episode on Pittsburgh. But until then, enjoy. Iceland is in Iceland.
It is in Iceland.
Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And we are Out of Office, a travel podcast. How are you, Kieran?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
Today, you better tighten that scarf, Ryan, because we are taking off to Iceland.
Ooh, Iceland. You just got back from Iceland.
That's exactly why we're doing the episode. I got back from Iceland. I got a lot to say about it.
What a coincidence.
But I'll tell you, before we do that, we've got a lot of housekeeping to take care of right here at the start.
We do. We get to bring back my other favorite segment, recalculating.
Recalculating, exactly. So let's get to recalculating.
Recalculating.
This, of course, is the time where we revisit topics we've discussed. We make corrections. We give further context. We let you know what we've been hearing from listeners. And boy, howdy, do we have a lot to cover today, Ryan. first off, had a listener reach out to us. Thank you for Brian. I believe it's Levin. Apologize if that's Levin. And I know it's Levin. He's my friend. And Brian wrote to let us know that you can no longer add pages to your passport.
So what happens if you run out of, you just can't travel anymore? You're done?
No, yeah. Yeah, they lock you down. You're stuck in the country, so you better select that last page. It must be a place you really want to go because you're giving it up. No, now you have to buy an entire new passport when your current passport runs out of pages.
Do you have to get a new picture, or it's not like a renewal? It's just simply like a.
So I guess my experience has been when you get a passport picture, often they give you two. So I would recommend hold on to one of those. You could probably just use that right again for the new passport.
Okay, well that makes sense. Well, that is good to know. My goal now in life is to get a new passport before my passport expires.
Yeah,
no longer,
so now it's a double passport.
Right.
Exactly. We can't aspire to the extra pages. Luckily, this rule changed in 2016, which apparently you and I missed that memo. But what's good about it is now when you order a new passport, you can actually get an extra thick 52-page passport, a thick boy. So even if you don't want what? The thick boy.
Yeah. No,
that's what they're calling. I mean, they don't call them that officially, but I think we travelers are starting to call them thick boys. If not, I would like us to start getting travelers to try to call them thick boys. When you see somebody with a passport that's 52 pages long, give them a shout and say, "Hey, nice thick boy."
Okay. Oh, that could be taken in many different ways depending on the culture. So
now I think the big question though is when you put in that original order, are you going to be aspirational and get the 52 thick boy?
Well, why wouldn't you? What's the downside? Is it not?
Because it takes up more room in your pocket. It takes up
huge.
Weight. No,
weight?
It's not huge, but it's big. Yeah. It's unnecessarily big. It's
unnecessarily
double the size
large.
of the other.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you should just go for the big one. You never know how much you're going to be traveling.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I agree with you. I think you should go aspirational. I think if you have 52, you're more likely to keep, you set that as a goal. You're going to be traveling more often.
It's like you should eat with smaller plates, right? If you eat with a small plate, you eat less. But if you eat with a large plate, you eat more. So same with the passport. Yeah.
So what we're saying is eat a ton on a giant plate, then get a thick boy passport and just keep on traveling around the world. Which actually, if you do those two things together, makes sense why they keep having to make those extra large seats for Americans.
Exactly.
Now, Ryan, another topic that we have to get to today is a mistake that you made on an early episode. Two mistakes, actually.
Right. Well, so, I think I made this mistake because when I was talking about Game of Thrones, I meant exclusively season 1. I'm a purist. And in season 2, they started filming.
What did you say? Just remind me.
I mocked the idea that Game of Thrones shot in Iceland. And it turns out.
Did you just mock the idea or did you mock me for asserting that?
Well, no, I mocked you for asserting that Game of Thrones season 1 filmed in Iceland.
With sort of a, hey, you idiot kind of tone.
Oh, no, definitely. It was definitely my hey, you idiot tone. I know that tone well. I try to avoid it. But yeah, I did use that tone with you. And they've shot a lot of scenes in Iceland. Jon Snow's love nest, Mance Rayder's camp, haunted forest, Fist of the First Men. I don't know what that is.
I don't know. I didn't know what that was either. Yeah,
that's a different video.
As you mentioned, they didn't get to Iceland until season 2. So you're saying that you were just thinking of season 1.
I was thinking of season 1. Yeah. Now that I think about it, it does appear that some of it was not shot in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and that one also did stand out to me, the Fist of the First Men. So you, a watcher, don't know what that means.
I know what the First Men are. They were those weird little creatures that run around by the kid who locked himself in the tree and was talking to the old man.
I don't any bells? The show, so that just sounds like utter gibberish.
The show is utter gibberish.
It sounds like things Grandpa says before you give him a pill.
Right.
Well, I'd be interested in knowing what Fist of the First Men is. It kind of sounds like a bar in Hell's Kitchen.
It does sound like something you wouldn't have to film in Iceland necessarily.
And then again, just a bunch of words I don't understand. Apparently, the pass to the house Aaron's stronghold of the Airy. Is that
Sure.
did I say all that right?
You surprisingly, I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
We're going to have to do a recalculating about how I pronounced, Mance Raider's name probably, but
we don't know. I think it's a rule. We do not do recalculating on recalculating. Once it's not recalculating's all the way down.
No.
And a final mistake I think you wanted to address.
Yeah. So my friend Mike Laws reached out to me and let me know that in Slovakia they actually do speak Slovakian, not Czech, as I wrongly assumed.
And I think maybe a little bit of the "Hey, you idiot" tone was used there.
No.
Well.
I think I was not sure myself. It was like is Slovakian in its own language, and it is.
It was boy, am I an idiot tone.
Yeah. So I want to apologize to all of our Slovakian listeners, and I have looked up how to say I apologize in Slovakian, and I don't even know how to really begin. Si opravitam, I believe.
I think you're making it worse.
So that's, I apologize in Slovakian.
Yeah, I mean, we have been getting just so many emails from far-flung Slovakians. So to all the Bohemers and the Kajeshkeks and the Genodeks who are emailing us, we have heard you, and Ryan is deeply sorry. Kopecki, you too, we are sorry. And to all the Christophs, so many Christophs. So with that, anything else you'd like to correct, Ryan?
I think that I feel like when you used to confess to a priest as a kid, you get that nice load off. I feel good.
Usually when I confess, the priest got a load off. Am I right, everybody? Yeah, I almost suggested we call. I almost suggested we call this this segment mea culpa, but I think that's far too specific to our experiences. So recalculating it shall remain. So Ryan, I think it is now that we must embark on our own Game of Thrones-like quest for a tagline.
We're still going with that?
Yeah. Yeah, we have. Unfortunately, we've committed through Christmas.
There's an overwhelming consensus for this seat taken. Yeah. That's really developing.
This seat. Yeah, well, that's the only one in the maybe pile. So this week is my week. As you know, because Ryan has been so lazy on it, I forced him to do 2 weeks in a row. So Ryan, this week you get to sit in the easy seat, the client seat. I'm going to pitch you 3 taglines, and again, we promise that by Christmas you're gonna come downstairs, peek under that Christmas tree, brush aside the cookie crumbs Santa has left, put the milk glass into the dishwasher, and you're gonna find a big gift. You're gonna unwrap that gift inside, and inside that gift, a beautiful, perfect tagline for Out of Office. Out of Office, a travel podcast. Pack your bag, Buster Brown.
I mean, what's the thinking behind that one? Like.
Okay, so it's pack your bag, right? So it's active.
That I understand.
Yeah.
That part to me is not so bad. Like if it was pack your bag, a travel podcast.
No. But Buster Brown, a great American icon, a comic strip character from the early 1900s. Yeah. We got Buster Brown suits, Buster Brown shoes. I mean, this is a quintessential Americana, Buster Brown. So I thought, pack your bags, Buster Brown, and then maybe in time, the audience comes to be known as Buster Browns.
Did Buster Brown travel often?
I don't know anything about the comic strip.
Really?
Let's see.
It's probably offensive if it's
No.
what you're describing.
No. From what I can see, let's see. He had a characteristic page boy haircut, and it's the reason that Buster became kind of an affectionate thing that you call one another, like, "Hey there, Buster." And so I think it's a nice way to tip our hat to the audience and say, come along and travel, pack your bag, Buster Brown.
I just think that most of our audience is not going to have a lot of feelings about Buster Brown. I had to Google it so I can understand what you were talking about.
Here's some of the background. Buster Brown.
Oh,
He's a
gosh.
young city-dwelling boy with wealthy parents. Okay,
Oh.
so he
Like
has
most people I know.
he has the means to travel, so that's important.
Right.
The Wikipedia describes him as disturbingly pretty.
Oh God.
So that seems like that would appeal to you, Ryan.
He looks like Madeline.
Yeah, he does. He's very cute. I actually figured because his name was Buster Brown that he would have brown hair, but it's actually a beautiful flowing yellow, sort of a corn chickadee yellow. Let's see. He dresses in a girl's out. Oh, he's a practical joker, so he dresses in a girl's outfit. And occasionally gets spanked by his mother. He's not good.
No.
So he's got a little bit of that sort of naughty charm that I think we try to bring. So final.
He traveled to the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. So
okay, so he's certainly a traveler. He gets around, and it's the World's Fair, so he's interested in international outings. All right, so I hear you coming over to a maybe.
No, this is absolutely. I'm just more like flabbergasted by like the scope of the bad idea. Like it's ambitious.
All right. So what you're saying is no to pack your bags, but maybe to Buster Brown. So
no,
if
Buster
I come
Brown
back,
is the one. Although there was a 1905 Broadway play called Buster Brown. Now I'm a little intrigued. He's a multimedia.
I think if
character.
it were a musical, this would tip into the maybe category. But given that it was only a play.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it sounds like that didn't satisfy. I'm disappointed to hear it, but I'm not surprised. Being the client, I can't criticize your taste, so I'll just move on to the next. Out of Office, a travel podcast. Ready, Pod, Go.
Oh, Ready, Pod, Go.
Now,
I like that. What about Ready, Set, Pod?
What about Potty, Set, Go?
That's not it.
Now, I did have those alterations. I could see a T-shirt that says "Ready Pod Go, Ready Set Pod, Potty Set Go." I could see it. I could wear it. I would enjoy saying it every week.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's not an automatic no. It's not an automatic no.
This is a thrill.
Yeah,
this is a true thrill. So now, of course, the weakness is that it has the word "potty" in it. Now,
if you said "Ready, Set, Pod."
Yeah.
Pod is replacing go because we're a podcast about going places. So I think that actually makes a lot of,
Ooh, yes. And
Out of Office, a travel podcast, Ready, Set, Pod.
Yeah, I think it's got some legs here. All right, I'm going to note down.
Okay.
So this is definitely in the maybe pile. I will note both of the two that continue to be in the maybe pile came on my weeks. Proud to say. Your little generator.
All right, Buster Brown.
How about Ready, Set, Pod, Buster Brown? All right. Well, I mean, I'm perfectly thrilled to call it a day there. I do have one here.
I gotta hear this. You put so much work into it.
Okay. I did. I already know how it's gonna go. Okay, ready?
Ready, Set, Pod.
Out of Office, a travel podcast. Your ear atlas.
Oh,
because I like old timey atlas and globes. I wish we still had to plan by magnifying glass down into onto a globe or atlas. So this is an ear is where we enter. It's where we enter into. It's where we enter, folks.
It sounds like a procedure you get if you can't like having a problem in my right ear. I'm gonna have to go get an old.
I think there might be an atlas in there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know.
But an atlas is like weighty. It's large. I think it's comprehensive. That's what we aspire to be.
Yeah. I think it's bad in the same way that the oral experience was.
It was deeply connected to oral experience because I was trying to capture that same sense of how people experience us.
Yeah, and we didn't like that. Remember,
I liked it. You're wrong on that one. Don't use a we. I was all for it.
I'm speaking for the listeners.
Also, I appreciate that when you don't like it, you're like, well, let me tell you the way in which it's bad. But no, I genuinely do like that though, because that means that I can come back in 2 weeks. No, you know what? I made you do 2 weeks. Maybe I'll take 2 weeks on, since I'm the one who keeps just scoring these slam dunks straight into the maybe pile.
If you take 2 weeks in a row, I promise my next week, I will not use any kind of automation to come up with my 3 taglines.
So you will come up with them yourself.
Myself. I
You
will
not
take a trip to
use
Burlington, Vermont for the
generator.
weekend. No,
you
I
will not look in Pinterest.
No Pinterest, no generators, no cheating or stealing of any kind.
Okay, that's my Christmas gift from you.
It's going to be,
Except I actually am requesting a real Christmas gift as well. But
The
for the
stakes are
sake of
high.
the podcast, that is your Christmas gift to me. I will absolutely take you up on that. I will be back next week with 1 more maybe and 2 rejections. All right, Ryan. I think it's time to dig into the primary topic of today. Iceland is a Niceland.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
So, Kieran, you just got back from Iceland.
Yes, just got back, and it was a great trip. I was there for 8 days, and it is a fascinating place. It is the closest part of Europe to the United States. So it's a very sort of easy, attainable trip, especially if you're on the East Coast of the United States. You can be there in like 4.5 hours.
And does it feel like Europe when you say, I know that I guess it's technically Europe.
Yeah.
Does it feel culturally like Europe?
It feels like it's totally own thing. I mean, it's like just below the Arctic Circle. You got Greenland to the left. You've got, the Scandinavian countries to the right. And it just feels like this totally isolated, raw, dramatic, unpopulated, just wild land. And it's because the country sits on the rift between the North American and the Eurasian tectonic plates. So the reason this island even exists there is because you literally have tectonic plates separating, and lava and all sorts of molten geological activity bubbling up, creating this tiny speck of land in this place that you look around, you go, I'm not totally sure humans should be here.
And so, describe the trip a bit. Did you fly into Reykjavik?
Yeah, so you fly into Reykjavik. You actually fly into an airport that is about an hour away from Reykjavik. But like Reykjavik's really the only significant city on the island, and
Right.
It's about 350,000 people live on this island in total. And in the greater Reykjavik area, you have 220,000 of them living there. So
Right.
that just goes to show the second you get out of the Reykjavik area, you're looking at like homesteads and farms. And if you have 100 people gathered around an area, then it gets a spot on the map. That's how sort of unpopulated and wild it is.
And how quickly did you get out to the unpopulated wild country?
20 minutes from driving outside of Reykjavik. I mean, it really the second you leave the city center, you feel like you're in uninhabited land. I mean, that feeling when you head into a national park in the United States, suddenly you're alone. Or I mean, not at the giant ones, but in the best scenarios, you feel like you are by yourself. That is how I felt. Now, I don't think you would feel that way during the summer months, because this is a crazy fact that I learned. During the summer months, Iceland's become such a popular tourist destination that in the peak between May and September, you often have more Americans on the island than you have Icelanders.
So there are more American tourists
That's
than
right.
actual.
Yeah, and then it's become more
that's crazy.
commonplace now for Europeans to also be there. But that's why I actually think November is a great time for people to consider going.
And the weather was good to do outside stuff.
So the weather wasn't absolutely terrific. It's if you don't mind cooler weather, then it's fine. It was mostly in the 40s. We got some nights of snow. But by and large, it was warm enough to be outside, to still be safe, and to be able to explore the country. But if you go past October, there are a fair there are a fair amount of areas on the island that you can't really reach because they close the roads. If it goes through mountain passes, they become unpassable. But you get a lot of upside for going in November. So first off, you get a chance at the Northern Lights, which there's only a few places you can get them. Iceland is one of the best places to see the Northern Lights.
And did you get to see the Northern Lights?
I absolutely did. I'm so happy you asked. Yes. So Catherine and I, when we booked the trip, we said, listen, we are not booking this in the hopes of seeing the Northern Lights, because to me, when you set an expectation like that, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. But of course, in the back of our minds,
do they appear like every night, or just it's like a crapshoot if there's going to be a Northern Lights display on any given evening in a certain time of year?
So it's a crapshoot, but it is more common at certain times of year. And most importantly, you have a long night, so you have many hours that the Northern Lights could appear.
Oh, I know about long nights. That's my...
But I mean, the sky is actually dark for a very long time.
Oh, okay.
So there's about 8 or 9 hours of daylight, and then you're on the dusky, or you're actually in night at this time of year. So you have more time to catch the Northern Lights. But the real rub is that you need the sky to be clear, and so we were lucky enough to get a clear night where they did appear. We didn't get sort of the most magical display that you see on Instagram where like the whole sky is lit up with green. But we did get these sort of ethereal tubes of green through the sky that just kind of stretched on to infinity. And a lot of the good hotels, they will alarm you the second the Northern Lights appear in the sky. And in fact, we stayed at one wonderful hotel called Hotel Renga that you actually press a button on your phone to get a wake-up call in the middle of the night if the Northern Lights appear.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and
so they know why people are staying at that hotel.
Yeah, oh, totally. It's in a remote location for exactly this reason. However, we were disappointed. We didn't get the Northern Lights the night we were there. It was actually a different night, a different hotel, but same kind of alarm system. But I love this.
I just imagine like I wouldn't be able to sleep all night waiting for the alarm to go off. You know?
And they actually have like a list of rules. They're like, lay out your warmest clothing because you may be out for an hour. But they even have like these kind of deck chairs set up in the parking lot each night so that you can run and get it. Because, they may only last 5-10 minutes. So you really have to capitalize on it.
Let me ask you a question. Do you know what the Northern Lights sort of actually are? Like what causes them?
Okay. All right. Let's just start by saying I was an English major. Okay. So this is going to be the most basic explanation. From what I understand.
This is not Star Talk.
No. Yeah. When we have Neil deGrasse Tyson on, first of all, our subscribership is going to shoot up. But secondly, we can ask him this exact question, as well as the best places and the best times to go see the Northern Lights. Actually, Northern Lights episode's great idea. We're going to note that down. From what I understand, it is certain solar activity causes the Northern Lights to appear on Earth. So when there are solar winds, it basically blows electronical particles from the sun into the atmosphere. And when those particles collide with the Earth's atmosphere, it produces these light shows. And that's why it's so variable, because it depends on how much solar activity to how much it's going to affect the Earth. And it can appear as green light, purple light. It can be in movement, or it can be stationary. It can be the entire sky. It can just be a little bit of the sky.
Yeah. So if I were the president of Iceland, what I would do to boost tourism...
Still pulling for you, by the way.
Thank you. What I would do to boost
tourism...
Still think
that election was stolen.
What I would do to boost tourism is I would fly a plane over and just sort of sprinkle some of this solar dust. And really...
Oh, so you think these solar particles that you can just put in a cargo hold, sprinkle it out. So you're basically suggesting the creation of a laser show over the entire country.
It would give them more months of tourism. I think they could do it on off-peak times.
Maybe you could blast some Pink Floyd from giant speakers.
I love the way that... that would be great.
Nope. But part of the excitement of the Northern Lights is how rare it is.
Right.
So I mean, I know a lot of people that have gone to Iceland with these high expectations of seeing them. And, they spent a week with their eyes turned upward and did not get lucky enough.
Under the Ryan J. Davis plan, they would see it every night in all its glory.
Yeah, absolutely guaranteed. I don't know. I think there's something to be said for the real versus the artificial fakery that you're suggesting.
That's fair. That's fair.
So we didn't have enough time on this trip to do the full circle of the island because they basically have a single road. Directions are very easy in Iceland because there's very few roads. And there's one central road that rings the entire island. They call it the Ring Road. But at this time of year, it's very difficult to drive the northern part because then you're really heading into Arctic areas. And so the full ring is about 20 hours. But Catherine and I basically did 10 hours out, 10 hours back along the southern coast. And that's kind of a greatest hits that you get to see of Iceland.
And so what are some of those greatest hits?
I mean, unsurprisingly, a lot of it has to do with this crazy geological activity. And, to the point of Game of Thrones being shot there, it's because it is such a raw country. I mean, you have these like hurricane level winds that are blowing off the oceans. It's broken down all this dried lava into this grainy black sand that's all along the coast. And the things you really see are waterfalls, which are called foss. Fosses is the Icelandic word, Foss. And so anytime you see on the map some word followed by foss, you know that you're going to be treated to some sort of majestic, spectacular waterfall that's about to come through. And I got to be honest, by the time you see the kind of like sixth waterfall, you're kind of like, okay, waterfalls, if a river hits an incline, it falls.
But you're saying that sort of the waterfall is Iceland's version of the European cathedral. It's like
yeah. Yeah.
Like, all right.
By the time you get to the night, and by the time you come home, you're like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures. I got no idea which one this is. Like, sure, there's like a mountain in the background. But when you're standing there and being splashed by the spray, it is all very exciting.
I'm like a 1 to 2 waterfall per trip kind of guy, I think.
Oh, then I'm not sure Iceland's for you. I mean, they need people who are frequent waterfall appreciators. Absolutely. What's good is that even if you do a weekend trip to Reykjavik, you can hit kind of the best of in a single day trip outside of Reykjavik. So there's an area that they call the Golden Circle. It's a 4-hour little driving circle, and you get to see the ridge where the two tectonic plates are actually separating, and you get to walk down this gorge that's actually carved in between them. And I'm gonna pronounce it, but Icelandic is famously difficult to pronounce, and so I apologize to all the Magnusons that are listening. So that is called the Thingvellir, and it actually is also a historic area because it's where from the 900s, chieftains used to come from around Iceland and basically hold their first parliament. They used to decide, okay, we're not going to bash each other's heads in with with pitchforks and hammers. This is Viking stock.
Right.
I mean, you got to figure those sorts of things out.
So I heard a story once that one of the reasons why Iceland is named Iceland is because they wanted to distract their neighbors from the fact that they had resources. As opposed to Greenland.
Myth.
That's
a
myth.
myth. Okay. First off, from what I can tell, not that many resources.
I meant beautiful waterfalls. They didn't call it like waterfall heaven, or something like that.
No. Waterfall heaven, again, a great idea for a tourism campaign. We're going to seed the Northern Lights and just rename it Waterfall Heaven. No, so it's actually a myth that it was named Iceland to distract from, its natural resource-rich area. A lot of stuff has to get shipped in because they don't have that many natural resources. I mean, you can guess at the natural resources that are abundant. I mean, obviously, they have wonderful access to fishing and seafood.
Right.
And so that's like what you eat the entire time you're there because that's what they have. But it is hard to grow there. I mean, there are farms, they raise sheep, they raise cattle.
It's not a big,
but
not a big farm to table sort of like dining community out there.
No. Well, I mean, they're trying to grow that out, but it's insanely expensive
Right.
because so much of it needs to be shipped in. But it was actually named Iceland by one of the earliest settlers, this Norseman. I think he was technically the third Norseman to reach Iceland, and spent a winter there, during which all of the livestock he brought died because it was cold. And so the story is that he saw a fjord with these icebergs and he named it Iceland. But prior to that, they were calling it Snowland. So,
Snowland sounds amazing.
Yes.
I want to visit Snowland.
Snowland. I feel like Snowland, you could really grow out a Christmas industry.
Absolutely.
Head out to Snowland, build a northern pole. We're basically set out on ruining all of the beautiful natural settings that are actually the reasons to go.
Yeah. Well, why it's called Waterfall Heaven? It's
Yeah, waterfall heaven. I mean, the whole place is basically the size of Maine.
Right.
And the reason you travel the perimeter is because the center is basically these high moonscapes. I mean, just these lava fields that stretch on forever. That is this dried, sharp, black rock, or it's glaciers. And it's ice fields that sit on top of volcanoes. In fact, before we went, I read a book by John McPhee called Control of Nature, which is 3 stories about man trying to control crazy natural forces. And the Iceland story is about Icelanders fighting lava flows, trying to protect their towns, or trying to redirect lava so that it grows out their landmass. And one of the most interesting details I learned was the ice field that sits in the middle of Iceland is on top of an active volcano. And when this volcano explodes, the lava rises up and melts through layers and layers and layers of ice. And the pressure builds and builds and builds until it hits the top of the ice. And then it explodes forth and water shoots out and spreads across miles and miles, which basically refreezes and smooths across the whole top of the ice field again. So it's just a very dramatic country.
Can you go see that? Is there a place you can go and view this activity?
So I think they would actually keep you away at those times because it can be very dangerous.
Sure.
But you can go into that highland area during the summer months. But it's one of those areas where they really recommend you go with highly trained guides.
Tell us a little bit more about the Golden Circle.
Yeah. So after you leave the gorge where the 2 tectonic plates are moving apart, you then drive a little further on to this area this field that is very active geothermically. And this is actually where the word geyser comes from. There is a pool of water there that the Icelanders pronounce something like geysir. It's Geysir. And it used to very dramatically explode. You see this sign that says geyser. You stand around it and you're excited, only to realize that this one hasn't been active for a while.
Right.
But if you turn around, there's another pool of water called Stroker, where there is always a line of people, and that explodes every 10 minutes. So everybody lines up with their iPhones out. I will definitely post pictures of this to our Instagram. And it explodes very dramatically. Apparently, it's not quite as interesting as what you get to see at Old Faithful, but I still found it very dramatic and interesting.
I've actually never seen a geyser explode in person before.
This was my first geyser.
You never forget your first geyser. No,
that's it's. I mean, honestly, it is quite frightening. You really jump back when you just see this pool of water suddenly explode into the sky and mist just go off into the winds. It's very, you come to realize that you're standing just on top of this giant pool of lava. I mean, that's basically what the whole experience of being in Iceland feels like.
Okay, so you've seen the tectonic plates, you've seen this geyser. What else is left on this Golden Circle?
Wait, do you have trouble saying geyser too?
Geyser?
Okay, geyser. I thought you said geyser right there. I thought this was a real Cheshire situation. So the last stop, not our last stop, but the last stop is Gullfoss. Now, what did I tell you Foss meant?
Waterfall.
Exactly. You are listening. I'm very proud of you. Gullfoss is this beautiful, probably the most beautiful waterfall we saw in the country. And it is extremely grand, very large, very wide, loud. You park, you go down to a viewing platforms. You can see it close up, or you can see it from far away, where you can get better photos. Very icy. You have to be very careful as you approach it. But it's a breathtaking waterfall that, actually, I feel like Reykjavik got really lucky that it happens to have, this great historical landmark, this active geyser, and this grand waterfall all within a 4-hour loop to the city. Because it makes it this really easy 3-day trip. And I do want to talk more in depth about Reykjavik, but that's going to need its own episode. I think we should bring somebody on who's been there. Or Ryan, I really think that you should probably book a trip there.
Yeah, I'll just jump on that WoW flight that you took, and
I mean, listen, if you got an extra $20, you can find your way there. But once you're there, every meal costs $300.
Yeah, that is the worst part about visiting anything of Scandinavia or Scandinavia adjacent, is that everything costs $4,000. So they've got all this lava. And presumably they can use this for energy in some way, right? They can, like geothermal energy?
Yeah. So that's definitely a really interesting part. One thing you will notice in your hotels is that the water is extremely hot when it comes out. Like, you know how in America you might turn your faucet all the way to the right to get that hot water, or all the way to the left, depending on which side of the faucet you're standing on. There, you are lucky if you go more than halfway, because it is so burning hot. And that's because they are very clever at using this geothermal activity. So, yeah, there are 7 geothermal power plants across the country, which, like, for a tiny country, 7 is quite a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
And there's one that you can actually visit. And again, not that far from Reykjavik. So it's a great stop. It's only about an hour outside of it. And it's called Hellisheidi Power Plant. And basically, it just has a great display that walks you through how this works, which is they basically cap these hot water pools, which creates a bunch of steam, which turns a turbine, which they then send out off to homes. And so they've they're one of the most innovative countries as far as using their natural resources to create. One of the downsides of that is that if you've ever been around any of these hot bubbling mud pots, it releases a smell of hydrogen sulfide, which is like rotten.
Yeah,
eggs.
that's not a great smell.
No, and
Does the
I
whole
definitely
country
noticed,
smell like that, or just?
Yeah, so I definitely noticed some of the water does smell like that. So you take a shower, you climb into your clean sheets, and you're like, somebody make eggs in here? It's very sexy.
I grew up in Ocean City, Maryland, and the sulfur smell from the shower is something I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So, the main takeaway I want to leave people with is consider Iceland for your next trip. It made it off the long list for us. It was a perfect 8-day getaway. I think you can really do a great trip there in 4 days. And in the summer weather, I think you could take 2 weeks and do the full ring and see quite a lot. We've got tons of topics that we need to come back to. Renting a car in Iceland is super fascinating. We got to do a spotlight on Reykjavik. And there are also extraordinary national parks there that give you mountains and glaciers and hikes and lagoons and icebergs. So all of that in future episodes to come.
That is a lot of Iceland-related content to look forward to, folks. But for now, it is time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
Okay, I'm really excited because I didn't go to Iceland recently, but I did go to Central Park, which when it's really cold, can feel a little Icelandic. Central Park right now has an incredible visitor that is just taking the city by storm.
Is it Santa?
No. A mandarin duck appeared last month in Central Park.
Handsome duck.
Handsome duck, hot duck, gay duck. A lot of nicknames for this duck.
Whoa. What makes him gay duck?
He's beautiful. He's colorful. He poses well for pictures. It's.
I
he's
know
neat
plenty
and
of.
tidy. Yeah. And single. He's single. All these things point, I think, to the fact he may
so
be.
he's like a confirmed old bachelor duck.
I think of it as like Lindsey Graham out there, in the pond. All right, but so this duck, and nobody really knows where the duck came from. Okay, that's one of the weird things.
Yeah.
The best guess is that somebody bought a mandarin duck and was just like, "This is a lot of work. I'm just going to go release it." With these other ducks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is the only mandarin duck in Central Park. There are some other mandarin ducks in the United States. There are a handful in California. There are a handful in North Carolina. But primarily, you're looking at Asia and Europe for actually seeing mandarin ducks. So this single...
I did see... I saw an article where Canadians were saying, Toronto has had one of these ducks for like years. And we just didn't think it was a big deal. We'll just leave it alone, let it make its way. Of course, in New York, it's like, well, we finished with the cronut.
Yeah.
So what can we all obsess over next?
I think that's unfair. I think that I'm sure the mandarin duck in Toronto, it's a Canadian duck, so it's a bit dull, sort of. It's not. This duck has pizzazz. Okay. So
I heard he's soon going to be playing Jefferson in Hamilton.
I think he would be a good Jefferson. Actually, he's got a little something. But so when you go to the park, obviously this is a wild animal now. It didn't used to be a wild animal, it was somebody's pet, but now it's out there. So you can't rely on the fact that the duck is going to be there to see. But if you follow the crowds down to the pond on the sort of southeast side of the park. That's where, he's been hanging out mostly. And you can see if he's around by just mobs of people. And he'll sort of like be on one side of the pond, and then he'll start to sort of paddle off because he's a duck. He doesn't really understand what's going on. And then people, and when I was there, it was probably a group of like 50 folks just ran around to the other side of the pond just to catch a better glimpse of this duck. So I was able to get a couple good pictures. I interrupted what appeared to be several European newscasts covering the duck.
Oh my God.
There were men in camouflage.
Do people realize? Do people realize there are wars?
No,
like poverty.
Well, what was funny? There was one man who was totally in camouflage, and he had this camera when the lens was, I don't know, it was like 3 feet or something, totally camouflaged lens. And I was like, this is great if this duck is not that difficult to capture the image of. But it was pretty. It's a pretty exciting time for New York, and so check it out. It's the single duck. And in case you're worried that, hey, New York gets really cold in the winter, like we don't want this mandarin duck to die because it's not native to die. The park officials are on it, and they are checking to make sure that it's comfortable every day. And if they notice any changes in its behavior, they're ready to bring it in for the winter and keep it safe.
And presumably, if it kicks the bucket before Christmas, it'll be Christmas dinner. It'll have died a good death. Imagine eating hot duck for Christmas dinner. That would be newsworthy.
That would be. You would not be popular if you were called eating hot duck. People like this duck.
I have to think that some of the restaurants in the area have to be adding hot duck onto their menus.
I have to say, I was really disappointed, and I told my friend, I think it's one of capitalism's biggest failures that there were no hot duck merchandise for sale at the park. Like I thought there would be people like,
oh, that's insane.
Yeah, people would have like fake hot ducks you could pose and get a picture with, or you could buy a hot duck keychain. But no entrepreneurship is evident in Central Park. None of that stuff was happening.
Yeah, winter hats that make it look like you've got that colorful plumage.
The duck is available for licensing. It doesn't mind. It's totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm assuming that if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it's incredibly hot, it's a mandarin duck.
All right.
All right. My last stop is great for the holiday season. I've got lots of nieces and nephews, and I'm always trying to think. That's right. And I'm always trying to think how to spread love of travel and curiosity about the world, sort of feed that wanderlust of the kids. And there is this children's book that I love giving to my nieces and nephews. I've given it many times before. And again, with Christmas around the corner, I'm thinking about it. And it's called Simply Home. And it's by an illustrator and an author named Carson Ellis. And what it explores is different types of homes from all around the world. So right from the book cover on, it immediately tells you it's going to explore diversity, and it's going to kind of give a sense that no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, the place that you call home has something special in it, but might look different. And so on the cover, it's got a pagoda-looking building. It's got a building with an onion dome. It's got an old barn. It's got a covered wagon. That one seems a little outdated. But I love this exploration of what connects us, but also celebrating the differences. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a great read and a great way to bring children on board.
What of the homes sort of jumped out to you? Are there any that you were like, you know what, I prefer this to my apartment in Cambridge?
Yeah. Okay. So the one that I loved the most, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily I'd give it up. I'd give up my apartment for it, but there's a page that says a babushka lives here. And it just shows this very humble kitchen with a little stew steaming on a gas range, and it's got a newspaper with Cyrillic writing on it, and it's got a picture of what appears to be maybe a Russian Orthodox saint. And I just think it emphasizes these little details that are things that you and I only notice when we actually get into the country. But it's getting that message and getting kids excited about it before maybe they've had that chance. So I remember on the first episode, you were saying, you used to send away for those tourism brochures. I could see this being like Baby Ryan's, favorite book. I guarantee you it would have been Baby Kiernan's favorite book. And so, yeah, pick it up. Home, Carson Ellis. We will put it in the show notes if you're desperate for a gift for a kid.
And what's a good age range for this book? Is it like a...
I mean, I think that the youngest age would probably be 3 or 4, that they could really appreciate the pictures. But honestly, I think that it could continue on through 6, 7, 8, where they're really coming to understand different people, different countries. I also think that it's great for just adults who enjoy fine illustration and travel. And you know what? Maybe get those kids you're giving it to subscribe to the podcast. Something else people should be subscribing to is, Ryan, we have just launched our Instagram account.
Exactly. And you can follow us there. You don't need to subscribe, it's not a magazine,
now,
Kiernan.
What? Now, do you remember the handle we got?
Yeah, it's OOO Podcast.
That's right. It's very catchy. Yeah. OOO Podcast.
Something I'm thinking about.
Office podcast.
I'm thinking about OOO Podcast, maybe for the tagline. Out of office, a travel podcast. OOO
podcast.
Well, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And we are Out of Office,
a travel podcast.
OOO Podcast.
Oh, podcast.